This video is going to demonstrate component pricing, which was added in HeavyBid 2015. Component pricing allows, instead of having a single price for every bid item, it allows you to break that price down into multiple components. I'm going to be demoing this in one bridge, one of our sample estimates, but you can really try this in any one of your estimates since we're not going to be affecting the data. So let's review what's in every bid item. In every bid item, in estimate entry, we've given it cost, the cost of performing that bid item. We've also added some overhead and markup to the estimate. The bid summary process will take that overhead and markup and spread it to the direct bid items. So by the end, every single bid item that I'm going to report to an owner is going to have its own cost. It's going to have its share of indirect dollars. It's going to have its share of add-on and bond. And it's going to have markup. Adding these together gives us a balance price, which is HeavyBid's suggested price for that item. And then after that, I went through and rounded all of those, making a manual price change, but keeping them pretty close to the same. This would typically be the last step of HeavyBid, either exporting these prices out to Expedite or printing them on a bid proposal. Component pricing, we're going to take one more step. Let's go to Tools, Preferences, Estimate, Component Pricing. Now our default says an owner is asking for the labor, equipment, materials price for every bid item. So just a demo, let's say the owner also wants to see subs. This is really just a matter of coming here and type in anything the owner is asking for. The next step is to take the base cost types of HeavyBid and say which component they belong to. So labor and burden are both going component 1 for labor. Inside, outside, and EOE equipment are all going to be going to component 2 for equipment. Permanent and construction materials are going to be going to component 3 for materials. Subs are component 4, and miscellaneous 1, 2, and 3 I'm going to assign to component 5. That part's pretty simple. The tricky part is down here. Down here is where we're going to be talking about overhead and markup. So overhead and markup need to be spread back to the owner components, just like the rest of it. We break this down into our 4 categories. Our first one's indirect, so it's whatever indirect dollars have been spread to this. And these indirect dollars can be spread by total cost, which means whichever one of these components receive the most money will get the most indirect and go down the line. It also has total cost less sub if you want to prevent wherever your sub's going from receiving some of those indirect dollars. And we also do labor, and equipment. I'll talk about those more in a minute. Add-ons and bond has the exact same options. Balance markup is what is the markup that was calculated during the summary and spread process. They have the same options, but they also have markup percent, which means whichever of these categories are receiving the most markup, are calculating the most markup, will then receive the most markup. And finally, unbalancing. Unbalancing are the manual price changes that I made on the bid pricing screen. So if at the last minute I'm going and taking out a $10,000 cut off of an item, what do I do with those numbers? And it's the same options, but I can assign it differently than the other ones. Now the most important part of using component pricing is really understanding what the owner is going to do with the different component prices. And to give you an example that we have heard is, what if an owner asks for your labor, equipment, and material prices, but then is going to look at your materials and say, that's way too high, why don't I just pay you for labor and equipment and I'll supply the materials? That's probably an exceptional case, but I'm not surprised if that happens either. So if that is going to happen, that's why we have some of these options, such as labor and equipment, would spread your overhead and markup to labor and equipment, but materials won't get any. So if you're really afraid of one of your prices being dropped by the owner or being brought into question or some other type of something else, then you might want to put more care into where your overheads and markup are going. But if these numbers, if you're confident that these numbers are only for information, leaving them at total cost is also a pretty easy way of handling this. So I'm gonna say okay, and now let's get these numbers out. We're gonna go to Exchange, Export More, Component Pricing to Excel. So now we pop up Excel. HeavyBid spits out the basic information for every bid item, such as its description, quantity, and units. We've seen some private owner bid forms that are looking for man hours, so we throw that on here so that's easy to find. Now, looking at this total bid unit price, this is the exact same as what bid pricing has. So none of the dollars per bid item are not changing at all. All we've done, we've set up instructions to take each one of these and split it up into the categories. So here are their categories. For instance, Mob, we split up into about $20,000 of labor, about $10,000 of equipment, about 40,000 subs. Adding these up are going to add up to the exact same that we have that we had on bid pricing. Now, at this point, we expect, and what we've seen the most of, is that you're dealing with a private owner's custom bid form, something that you really can't get directly out of HeavyBid. So we put this into Excel, so it's really easy to copy paste these numbers into that owner's bid form. In the future, we'll be looking to see if any consistency starts coming from the owners, but here's what we have as our first step of what to work with. So I hope component pricing is helpful to you, and that's it.